I'll kind of go over my build real quick, what I did here. One with bone splinters, enhanced bone splinters, so you can get 2 extra projectiles for a total of 5. And then bone splinters, that's 20% chance to apply vulnerability for 2 seconds, which makes them take 20% increased damage. If you're having survivability issues, you can go with hemorrhage, which will give you blood orbs that heal you for 15% of your health when picked up. Also gives you 8 essence. This one gives you only 5 essence generation. This one gives you 8 plus an extra 2 essence per enemy hit. So that would be a total of 10. So double the essence generation from this right here. And then you can get 20% additional attack speed when you're healthy, which means you're above 80% health. Or you can get a fortify. I'm not sure which one I would go with. Probably the attack speed. I guess that would generate more essence quicker to use your spenders. And then I went with Bone Spear. I picked up 2 ranks of this. I have a total of 3. As you can see, it says item contribution 1. That means one of my armor pieces or weapons, likely an armor piece, has an added ability point on it. Bone Spear shoots a large spear out, which hits an enemy, does 102% weapon damage, and then the first enhancement option breaks the spear into 3 shards when it hits something. So it hits the first target, it splits off into 3, and then it keeps traveling, hitting more enemies in the back. I picked up the Bone Spear that makes the first enemy hit vulnerable for 3 seconds, so for sure that enemy is taking 3% more, or 20% more damage. Along with this, that one has a 20% chance for 20% more damage, so most of everything I'm fighting is gonna have 20% more damage from me. You could go with this, which gives you 5% crit chance, and if it does crit strike, it fires an additional 2 more bone shards upon being destroyed. So instead of splitting off into 3 shards, it will split off into 5 shards, which potentially could be more AoE damage. However, I like doing 20% more damage from that first hit. That will always work on bosses, especially if you're picking up hemorrhage and going into attack speed or the fortify. You would lose the vulnerability buff from bone splinters, so you might want to make sure that you pick up Supernatural Bone Spear to get the vulnerability, especially when you're on boss fights. Since that is single target, you'll always have vulnerabilities on that first enemy for 3 seconds, so just make sure you're popping that at least every 3 seconds if you're going with the minion build. I went and picked up Skeletal Warrior Mastery, 45% more life and damage for your skeletons. I am making this primarily a pet build, with some quality of life and other things. The 20% damage should apply to your minions as well, so that they're hitting for 20% more damage as well. Picked up Blood Mist because while the healing from it is almost nothing, as well as the fortified is almost nothing, the immunity for 3 seconds is amazing. It does reduce your movement speed by 20%, not increase it, which would be awesome if it was the opposite, or at least let you move at normal speed. I feel like this might be buffed in the future. I think the base fortitude and the healing from it is just so minimal. I mean, heals you for it does 6 to 8 damage to enemies for 3 seconds. So you're getting like 24 damage total to an NPC or a mob. That is absolutely nothing to them when you're hitting things for 2k on your rogue, and you're doing 36 damage or 24 damage with your AoE Blood Mist, it's not enough damage to even be considered a damage ability, unless you're fighting like those baby spiders or something. They don't really have much life. And it heals you for 0.5% of your maximum life, which is 2 for 3 seconds. So we get 6 health out of this, potentially. This is not a healing thing. This is not a damage thing. This is a I'm about to die. Let me pop this and not die, so I can get out of something. It does work to take you out of CC. I don't see it saying that, but when you are CC'd, feared, or frozen, this ability does not gray out. If you pop it, it will take you out of that. So this is a good ability for survivability, but not for damage and not for healing. This here reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds when you hit something with overpower damage. I don't know if we really have much for that one. So this ability, Blood Mist, there is a legendary that you can have, that the legendary effect is, while using Blood Mist, you consume all corpses with corpse explosion. And this tier here, you can only have one of these two for each node. You can't pick both, you can only have one. So you have to pick this one, which gives you Fortify, or this one, which leaves a corpse behind. Since we're running a minion build, the extra corpses don't really look good for us whatsoever. The idea for this would be to use Blood Mist as a spender, as a damage build. You would get the legendary that uses corpse explosion on when you're using Blood Mist. So while you're in Blood Mist, you consume corpses and explode them with corpse explosion. I don't believe you need the talent. The legendary does it for you. So you would be using this, obviously, you have to. And then you would pick this up. Blood Mist leaves behind a corpse every 1 second. So that's 3 more corpses on top of whatever's already there. This is 3 seconds, every 1 second. So essentially you would get 3 extra corpses for 3 more explosions using Blood Mist. I could see that being OP as hell if you can get the legendary, which I have not seen yet, but I've heard people talk about it, to where you are immune. Of course, you're moving slower, but you are immune, and you're exploding the corpses around you. Corpse explosion does a massive amount of damage. Doesn't sound like much, 75% of damage, where this is 110, 102, but that 75% of damage is good. The first bonus would increase your radius by 15 if you were going with Corpse Explosion on top of Blood Mist, since you probably would not be running minions with this build. Possibly the golem for the taunt to keep shit away from you. Corpse Explosion becomes a darkness skill. Instead of exploding, releases a vile miasma, dealing 110 shadow damage over 6 seconds. I don't know if I picked that up or not. It does increase the damage by quite a bit, but it does turn it into a dot. So here you have Corpse Explosion deals 10% increased damage to mobs that are slowed, stunned, or vulnerable. The bonuses can stack. So this is where I would probably pick up Plagued Corpse Explosion for 10% damage on top of my 20% here. So that's 30% increased damage. So we're going from 75 to 105 damage. This is 110, but over 6 seconds. This is instantaneous. So I would probably run this, and then make sure that somewhere in the build you have a slow, what is this? You do have to have a builder. So I would probably run Hemorrhage with the Blood Orbs and the 20% attack speed while healthy. Then I would be running Bone Spear, applying the vulnerability for 3 seconds. That's your 20% damage increase. Then if you're running a Blood Mist with the legendary, run Blood Mist with the Ghastly Blood Mist. I guess it's an enhancement. And then pop up your Plagued Corpse Explosion, so you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4 abilities. You have room for 2 more. I'm not sure what else you would run in here. You could run Decrepify and Iron Maiden. There's a legendary that increases your damage while the both are on an enemy by a certain percent. I'm not sure what that is, but I veered off track. So for this build, we're going with Bone Splinters. If you're having trouble surviving, go with Hemorrhage. Pick up Alkalites Hemorrhage, get 20% to increase attack speed while you're healthy, which means you have more than 80% health, so you're getting more blood orbs. The more you attack, the more blood orbs you have, which means the more healing you get, which means you can stay above 80 longer. Bone Spear is picked up because it is huge damage, and it does spin off into AoE, but it also applies 20% damage increase on the first enemy it hits. So you'll always have that on bosses. Increasing our Skeletal Warrior Mastery, that gives them 45% more health and damage. We're picking up Death's Embrace, which gives close enemies within, I guess, melee range 6% more damage from us, and they deal 9% less damage to us. That's just kind of a no-brainer. You can't always be at full range. Things are going to jump on you, things are going to charge you, things are going to pin you down. It's going to happen. This can help you deal with that. Death's Reach increases 12% damage to distant enemies. So the enemies that you are distanced from, since we do have golems, mages, and everything else, skeletal warriors, even though I said you can't afford all of them, a lot of them you can, so this will give you 12% damage to the ones that are not close to you. And then here we're picking up Skeletal Mastery for mages, which is the same thing as for the warriors. Other than the differences, one is for mages, one is for warriors, it's still 45% to their damage and their health. These two here, you can see they have 1 point. They're like a purplish blue color, lavender. Those are because they came from items. You can see here and below where it says rank 1 of 5, this is item contribution. That just means I have an item equipped that gives me 1 point into that. Corpse Centrals, extremely underwhelming, did not care for it. I felt like it just wasted time. It takes a second for it to pop, and it stuns them, kind of pulls them in with a little extra talent points, but it doesn't really help too terribly much. It does apply vulnerability for 3 seconds to enemies that are hit with it, but I just found that I didn't really care for the way it worked. Bone Spirit, kind of cool. Use all of your essence that you have saved up, and then summon a big thing that charges and explodes, kind of like the Witch Doctor, I believe, had something like that in D3. So you could summon something, it would charge and explode. Little totem guy, can't remember what it's called. So here I picked up Golem Mastery, rank 2 of 3. I did not have enough points to pick up the 3rd rank because I wanted to pick up Bone Storm. Bone Storm summons a swirl of bones around you that does 180% damage. It also summons it around your golem. The 2 damages do stack, so if you're standing on top of your golem, that's 360% damage for 10 seconds on top of you and your golem together combined. Huge AoE damage. So what I've been doing is popping Bone Storm and popping Blood Mist together. So now I have Blood Mist going, doing damage, which is minimal, and I have Bone Storm doing damage twice from my golem and myself, which does a ton of AoE damage. But I'm also immune for the duration of this, so any kind of damage that's going to come into me, I don't have to worry about. If I had another possible way to get another talent point, I would max out my Golem Mastery for an extra 15% of life and damage to my Golem. I have not messed with Army of the Dead, and I have not messed with Blood Wave. Blood Wave looks pretty cool, like if you're in a narrow path and there's just a bunch of stuff coming at you, to pop that and let it go down and push everything back. Then it looks like it slows it, and these blood orbs behind, so you can do a blood build and just get a ton of extra healing out of this. Blood orbs also heal your minions, so you could, with that other build I was speaking on being survivability, if you picked up Hemorrhage, and I see this a lot on bosses, your minions die and you don't have corpses to respawn them, which really sucks. But If you went hemorrhage instead of bone splinters, you're dropping the blood orbs. And if you went down this tree, you could see this talent point here heals your minions for 15% of their health. So you could somewhere, maybe later on when we have higher levels, we have more talent points, maybe drop some of these Death's Embrace, maybe drop this Death's Reach. I wouldn't want to because it's just so much extra damage on top. Minions just wreck things. This is when you're under 50% health, you get even more healing. I'm assuming that applies to potions and hemorrhage blood orbs. And then your blood orbs here will heal your minions. So if you went minion build, essentially you'd probably want to be picking these things up. Yeah, I don't really see these three here for what we're doing or what I'm doing. These three I would not be using, but I would definitely use this rank 3, this rank 3, finish leveling out this. This would be huge if I had the points. Right here, increases damage reduction by 6%, reduced by 2% for each active minion. Oh no, I got that backwards. So you wouldn't want to run that. This is if you were sacrificing your minions so you didn't have to, you didn't have minions at all. That will give you damage reduction. So ignore that. We're running pet build. This is what I would pick up. And this. So I'd probably pick up majority of this stuff. Yes. I would pick up all of these. Eventually, once we get our talent points, we're picking up this. We're picking up this, and this. So every 5 seconds, a skeletal priest will heal your skeletons to 20% of their max health. That stacks 3 times. I'm assuming that means the percentage would go up. Possibly the time duration might go up, or maybe every 5 seconds it might go down to 2 seconds. Not sure. Minions cannot lose more than 75% of their maximum life for single damage. That is awesome. If you've been healthy for 4 seconds, your minions gain, and you gain 4% attack speed. That obviously goes up probably to 12. Unless it's doubling. I doubt it's doubling, so it'd be like 4, 8, 16. I doubt that's the case. It probably just goes up multiply. It says additively, so 4, 8, and 12. And then this one is your minions deal 10% increased damage. So that's probably 10, 20, 30, or yeah, more than likely. If you're standing close to them. So you would want to be up close and personal, which is where Bone Storm was going to be used anyway, which is where Death's Embrace is going to want to be on because you're taking less damage, and which is where Blood Mist is going to save you if you get that oh shit moment. I haven't even looked at this. Yeah, this is awesome. If you haven't taken damage for 3 seconds, your minions gain 15% attack speed. If you have at least 7 minions, the bonus is doubled, so 30% attack speed. That means your minions are just hitting hard. Bone Storm increases your damage reduction by 15% while it's active. So that's 10% or 10 seconds, giving us 15% damage reduction for 10 seconds. You would want to make sure, I guess, you wouldn't use Bone Storm with this if you had that passive, because you're immune already, at least for 3 seconds. So if you're popping these together, you're losing 3 seconds of immunity, of the damage reduction here. You would still get the remaining 7 seconds of damage reduction, but you might want to pop your Mist to keep you alive and get away, and then pop Bone Storm, unless it's you just know there's some serious damage going to be coming in. And your crit chance is increased by 20% while Bone Storm is active. So those are my talent points. We'll go over the Book of the Dead. Right now I'm using Reapers. Reapers do heavy damage every 10 seconds with a special wind-up attack. The passive that I picked up for them, each skeletal type gets 3 different options with 3 different, well, let me rephrase that. each skeleton type, mage and golem. Actually, I'm not sure about the golem yet. Let's go back one. Yeah, so there are 3 golem types as well. Each one has 3 builds, or 3 types of minions. So the warriors, you can have skirmishers, defenders, or reavers. Skirmishers are dual wielders. They deal 30% increased damage, but they have 15% less life. Defenders have 15% more life. And you can also pick up every 8 seconds. They will negate the next instance of direct damage that they would take, which is probably going to be needed on some bosses, especially the world boss. Reapers, like I said, they do a heavy wind-up attack. I believe you'll see them like do a really slow action and then take that scythe of theirs and slam it down on the ground in front of them. I picked up this one here. Any of them that are attacking enemies that are stunned, slowed, immobilized, or vulnerable, remember we're using our vulnerability, reduces their cooldown of their wind-up attack by 2 seconds, so they can use that heavy hitter more often. This you can use if you're going with that blood mist. Well, you're not going to be running minions. So each tier of... Oh crap, I don't want to do that. Just kill them all. When you switch the types, they all die, because you're going to have to spawn new ones. So each type, you have the 3 types, but you also have 2 different versions of each. For this one, skirmishers, you get 1 additional skirmisher. So I also have an item that gives me 2 additional skeletons. So that means instead of having, I think we can have 4 total, then essentially I can have 4, 5, 6, plus 1 more, that would be 7. So I should be able to have 7 skeletal warriors, which is a lot, especially if they're doing 30% increased damage. I might actually run with that instead of the Reapers, although the Reapers do really do a lot of damage. So each one has like an active, passive, I don't know what it's called, an active trait. You want to give them a trait bonus, but each one also has a passive buff for you. So if you see this one here, it says, but you can no longer raise skeletal warriors, but you can no longer raise skeletal warriors, but you can no longer raise skeletal warriors. So if you're going with that blood mist build earlier with the legendary that creates corpses and then uses corpse explosions automatically, you're going to want to run these passives of some kind. Crit strike chance increase, non-physical resistance, or increased shadow damage. So if you went with the blood corpse that turned them into the DPS over time, with shadow damage you could maybe pick this one up and do 10 times more damage. I don't know if I like damage over time ones. I guess that could make it easier to speed run if you're popping that and then leaving, because you can see how much damage over time is on the mob's health. It turns into like a dark red on top of the bright red health bar. But for us, I'm going to try running this, I guess, to have 7 instead of 6. I'm not sure if that's going to be better than having this. They do 30% increased damage, so we'll see how fast they can burn stuff down. Then our mages, we're running cold with the 2 essence upgrade, because we want to spam Bone Spear and Bone Storm as much as possible, even though this has a cooldown. Bone Spear does a ton of damage. It doesn't really look like a lot, but I promise you that it hits hard, and the spears return back to you after casted. That was a bad example. So here's our left go. You can see sometimes we cast 3, sometimes we cast 5 like that, and that, and that. That is our Bone Splinter. This is our Bone Spear. It casts 1 at a certain point. If it doesn't do something, it does splint off and come back. So when we're fighting mobs, you'll see that go out, hit something, and then come back with the splinters. So that breaks off into splinters and turns into this. For the cold mages, we're just giving us more of our resource to spend. You could also pick up this, because these guys will eventually freeze things, but however, we're not going to really need this vulnerability because we already have it in our Bone Spirit. You could do this one if you want some added stuns, and if you remember, some of our abilities do increase damage that stack. So if we're using the Shadow Stun, it's 10% chance to stun for 2 seconds, and it cannot happen more than every 5 seconds. So I don't know if this applies to boss. I'm assuming that it does. Maybe not. Or you can pick up a 6th bolt. Every 6th bolt will fire an additional bolt. Don't really care so much about that. I don't know how much damage it actually really does. It doesn't really give us an example of how much damage these things are doing. It'd be nice to see that. Does our damage scale their damage? I'm assuming it does. It'd be nice to see like their attack speed or how much damage each one of these are actually doing, or do each type do the same amount of damage. The bone ones, they summon bones from their own bodies. They take them out and they fling them out. It also takes health from them. Eventually they will end up dying. During the first talent is reduces the life cost of them per attack from 15 to 10%. After being alive for 5 seconds, they deal 40% increased damage, at which time you'll probably have to resummon it. Each time a bone mage dies from its own attack, they leave behind a corpse, so you can pop another one, which is interesting. So you could kind of infinitely have something to spawn on bosses. If you're having issues with them dying too much, maybe you can pop this one. You'll get a few tosses out, say 15% HP. So eventually you'll be able to get another one. If you're running your passives, for a non-pet build, then each one of these you'll be able to pick a specific passive. Essence is increased, 15% more damage to vulnerability, that would be nice. Overpowered damage, I don't know what we do that has overpowered damage, but I would probably end up running the vulnerability one, just because that's almost always on most mobs. If you're running with a friend with the World 1 Barb, pretty much everything's going to have a slow and a vulnerability pop on it if they spec right. I say right, if they spec into a debuff type thought, which will boost the entire group damage. For our golem, he's just big. He makes things hit it. He taunts. He looks pretty cool, I suppose. I wish he didn't have all the glowing blue stuff around him. Kind of don't look as cool as they could. Maybe if it was more green instead of blue, that would look a little bit more ethereal. So each time a bone golem takes up its damage, it sheds a corpse. We don't need corpses. We're not running a corpse build. And here he gains 10% more health, and he also gains some of our thorns from him. We're not running thorns, so it doesn't really apply. And if you were to consume him instead of summon him, you could get 10% more attack speed. I have not played around with a whole lot of the other builds without pets, so we can't really go into those, but I can say this one is pretty fun to use. It does feel very Necromancer-ish. It would probably feel more like a Necromancer if I had not gone with Bone Splinters, but instead went with with Hemorrhage, with the blood orbs to heal myself with, which is actually what I set my son up with, because I felt like he needed something. He's only 7, so he has a lot more survivability using that build. He has been having a blast on this game. For legendaries so far, we don't have anything really game breaking or changing. While you have it there active, there's 23% chance to ignore damage from direct damage from distant enemies. I'm trying to see, we do get barrier from something.
No, not yet.
Not that one.
Actually, not at all, because
right
you're
here.
too little to play it.
So our legs. Damaging an elite enemy grants you a barrier for 10 seconds. It only happens every 30 seconds. But coupled with this, so While we have the barrier active, we also have 23% chance to ignore the damage, which means the barrier does even more effectiveness. We're not using shadow damage, we're not using Decrepify or Iron Maiden, so this legendary is just a stat stick. But if you can see, the first trait on it is rank 1 of Bone Spear, which is amazing because that is what we're using, so that makes us have more damage from our right click. For the boots, this is where we got our 2 extra skeletal warriors. That is awesome. You can get those, you want to get those. I know there is also a legendary power that will grant you 3 skeletal mages, which would give us a total of like 13 total right now. I think right now I'm running 7, 10, 11, so that could give us 14 minions total if we had that legendary power. For a weapon, I'm using this just because it has 24 intelligence, it has decent attack power, it does more damage to close enemies, so anything that gets so close to me hopefully dies quicker. Probably does not apply to your minions, obviously, would assume it does not. Bone Prison, we're not using. That legendary power is completely useless. Necklace that you get from the main story quest, this one gave us rank 1 of all curses. Absolutely useless to us because we're not using curses. We're not using shadow damage. We don't have fortified, but we do get reduced essence cost reduction. That's good. And I did notice that this necklace drops with the same legendary power. I ran the main story quest 3 or 4 times, got the same necklace. It is obviously Vigo's protecting amulet. I'm not going to go into the quest or who Vigo is. Let you figure that out. But while not healthy, or when hit while not healthy, so once you get under 80% health and you get hit, you summon a bubble around you for 6 seconds and it makes you immune. It happens every 1.5 minutes, which can be life or death on a boss for sure. Other people can stand inside of it as well. Downside is, I don't know if this is intentional or not. I was fighting a boss and he was melee. He hit me, the thing popped. The boss became immune as well. So that kind of sucked. In order to get the boss out of it and for me to damage him, I had to get out of my bubble. This right here, Decompose can chain up to 2 additional targets, blah blah blah. We're not running Decompose, completely useless. This does nothing to me other than damage to distant enemies, another 6.5%, plus our crit chance. We're not using cold stuff, so that's also useless. That might apply to your mages. I'm not sure how that works. Damage to CC'd enemies, we're not running that. We have more crit chance. Regenerate while not damaged recently, so we are getting some HP regen, which is not very much. But it's actually more than our fucking blood mist is, so there's that. What kind of damage is this? It says bone damage. I don't know. Is that physical damage? Is it considered magic? I'm not sure. There's 3% physical damage on this ring, but crit strikes with bone skills increase your essence regeneration by 22% for 4 seconds. We got the lower end of the deal. We did get the 4 seconds, but we could have got 30% regen if the stats rolled right. A whole bunch of RNG in this on top of RNG. If you played any like Diablo 3, you'll know that the entire game is RNG, whether it comes to what stats you get, how much of the stat you get, and whether it's actually going to be useful for you or not. I've gotten about 40, 45 legendaries total since I've been playing the beta across all of my 5 classes at level 25, and these are probably all the useful ones. And as you've seen, like some of these are just useless and useless. That is good. And this one, deal 31% increased damage while you have a barrier. So we know that our necklace, no, something gave us a barrier. The legs gave us the barrier. The chest gave us the chance to ignore damage while barriered. And this will give us 31% increased damage while we are barriered. Plus lucky hit chance, plus crit chance, plus 7 all stats, and cooldown reduction. This is pretty good. Offhand, I got it actually running on my sorceress, but it looks like it actually does work on your necro as well. Some items did not work, like I got some weapons on my druid. It's a one-handed mace. I wanted to give it to my barbarian because it had 23% increased basic attack skill speed. So your left click melee builder that you're doing, or your left click is normally your builder unless you redo your keys. So I wanted to give my barbarian 23% increase left click basic attack. And while it didn't say druid only, it said you can't use this. I'm not sure why it said that. You can see I have 471 attack power, 1700 armor, and 467 life. I don't have any idea how great these are. I know I've seen a sorceress running 600 attack power, which was insane. But he had only played sorceress since the last beta, and the entire time during this beta has played nothing else. You have your material stash here. You can see your currency here, and then your materials here. Some of these things like this, and Fiend Rose, I have not seen that at all. It looks like you have to go into maybe a more higher difficulty to get those. You will have to use those later on for crafting and upgrading things, as well as these. There's all the salvage stuff, but I haven't really seen. I'm assuming it's just for upgrading items, or maybe reforging their legendary stats to something else. But there's no crafting. As far as like in D3, you can go to the blacksmith and craft armor and other things. Haven't seen that in the game yet. Maybe it's going to be added later on whenever the game releases. No idea. But here we have our currency. I was actually looking for this yesterday. So you can see I have a max of 510 ovals. Ovals are what you're using in place of blood shards from D3 to gamble. You don't have Kadira. You have some other person, I believe. You're spending those to gamble on items. That's where I got some of these things by, like this I got by gambling at the vendor. These are only in PvP. It's not in the game yet. You can see our core stats. You can see what they do. Dexterity is crit chance. Willpower is resource gen. Healing and overpower damage. Intelligence is skill damage. And resistance is everything. Strength is armor. And of course our level. So if you're building a crit build, you can just stack dex. Willpower, it's not like, oh, intelligence gives you, it's a caster stat. No, apparently it isn't. I thought it was until I just looked at this actually. Strength just increases your armor. I would hope that would increase your attack power as well for a warrior class. Trying to see, it doesn't actually say. Okay. We have our weapon damage, we have our weapon speed, crit, strike, chance, damage, overpower damage, vulnerability damage. I feel like I'm missing something here because there should definitely be more than that. You can just see like 20% basically damage first distance, 12% up close. And here's our 45% damage with our increase. I don't know where our golem got 45%. I didn't have that point into the last tree. Oh, here we go. The life bonus. So he's getting extra damage from somewhere. I guess I don't know where. Probably the talent. But here's their life for us and our minions. Armor. Our resistances are down here. I did put the where is it? Resistance to all elements in my necklace, and ultimate skill damage in my offhand, and I just got the increased life in my chest. I don't have anything in my head because I'm probably going to replace it. Your essence, your movement speed, essence regen, essence reduction, cooldown reduction, lucky hit chance. They don't really explain what this is. I mean, lucky hit chance is like not a crit. So you have your crit hit chance and you have your lucky hit chance. Your lucky hits do some extra damage. Let's see if I have. I don't think I have anything that says like lucky hit. I believe that's spec based. So if you're looking at your build, there's gonna be some things that say luck hit chance, and it'll give you a percentage, and it might say lucky hit spawns another health globe. So it's not on crit; it's on a lucky hit, which is different. And then our PvP stuff, which we're not even looking at right now because it's not active. Your equipment's in here, consumables are here, quest items are in here, and your aspect. This is not like D3 where you put your item in the Heraldric cube and withdraw the essence and it stays in the cube for you to use forever. Nope. These go into your bag and your aspects, which you keep as an item and use them whenever you reforge your legendary. So I could technically, Bone Spear's primary attack makes enemies beyond the first hit vulnerable for basically 2 seconds. Bone Shards from Bone Spear deals 70% bonus damage. I probably need to put that on this weapon, which will destroy this. It'll keep the weapon, but it'll destroy the aspect that's on it. So you can't extract it and have it in your thing to use. To get those, you would have to go to the dungeons. I've already gotten them all. But if you see here on this dungeon where the little orange dot is, some of the dungeons you can get the weapon affixes, like the legendary traits, out of the dungeons. Oh, here's one right here. Perfect. So this one is a rogue only. It awards you with aspect of explosive verve. Your grenade skills count as a trap skill. Whenever you arm a trap or drop grenades, you gain 10% increased movement speed for 3 seconds. I'm not using that, but essentially I would pick all of these up. Why not have all your legendary traits that you could possibly get in your vendor? So this would not go into your inventory. This would be applied to the vendor. He's over here in this building. You can't see him on this map, but he's over here, and that's where you take away or add your legendary fixes. These are reusable infinitely so long as you have the resources to apply it. The ones in our inventory here will get consumed and put into that weapon. I'm assuming that if we got another weapon with a higher item level, higher damage output, we would just extract that so it would go back into our bag to be used on the new weapon later on. Items can be upgraded. You can see a total of 4 times. It's expensive as hell. The items to upgrade to rank 4 we do not have in the game. I don't believe. I have not seen any of them, and I have been disenchanting everything I can. I've also been, that's a lie. I've been disenchanting about half of it and then selling half of it because these prices to increase, I think the 3rd rank costs like 125,000 gold, which doesn't sound like a lot from D3 where you have trillions of gold in you. But in this game, the highest amount of gold I've gotten so far was 500,000, and I burned through it upgrading like 3 items. Whether or not that was smart, who knows, who cares. Your profile, you can come in here, you can change your title, this is where your clan is, your emblem, haven't seen those yet. Oh, there they are, they're here. Let's go ahead and change that to that. Your titles, you get prefix and suffixes. They show up underneath your character's name, but you unlock them as you're doing things in the game, whether it be quest completions or doing challenges or events that give you extra names to use. I'm assuming that's where our names from the beta testing are going to be in here. I don't even remember what they're called, so I can't really show you those. I went with Covetous Conjurer for now. You can set your game to private, so or no, you can set your profile to private. I don't know why you'd want to do that. I'm messing with this. But that's pretty much the gist of it. That's my class, my build, why I went with what I went, how I went with it. Your dodge here, your evade, it's not like in Diablo 3 you get a short little jumpy, and it goes on cooldown for 5 seconds. I have 2 charges. You only get one, but you get another one from one of my builds here. Gives me extra, or one of my talent items. Sorry, God, I can't get that right. One of my talents gives me an extra evade skill somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it's a +1 to evade. But this is basically how we send our warrior golem in there with the 2 button. That's our active button that we do. We want our 7 skeletons up, so we have 10 skeletons plus the golem. We have 11 minions right now. 3 mages, 7 skellies, and 1 golem. So the active on the golem, he will run in like that. He will AoE stomp and taunt everything to him. The active for the raised skeleton, so long as there's 7 of them, is really easy to miss. If I cast on this thing right here, the raised skeleton, it'll summon a priest that will buff all my other skeletons. So if you watch, I'll pop this, it'll pop up, buff my skeletons, you'll see them kind of glow a little bit, and it'll instantly despawn. Boom, it came up, it buffed, and despawned. So they are buffed, I don't know how long, 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds you basically want to be using that to give your minions 20% increased damage and heal them for 10% of their health. We're going to send our golem in, and then we're going to buff our skellies. And that's pretty much the build. If you have some really, like right here, I'll go ahead and use bone form and emerge. Now we just run around, we're doing AoE damage, we're not taking damage, and we're going to send the taunt, and we're going to go ahead and buff, and I'm going to start right clicking. You'll notice in the enemies, on the enemy's health bars, it turns purple whenever you hit them as vulnerable. It will make their health bar turn purple. If you ever see an enemy with a purple health bar, you want to make sure you're hitting it with, whatever you got. That means they're taking vulnerable damage, and they're taking that 20% increase damage. Some of these pylons will give you the buff instantly. Some of them, like this one, will make it into an event, and you get some waves before it lets you actually activate it. We can't click it again. We do not have the buff yet, and we're actually gotten close, and we're doing light while we remain near the pylon, but that's okay, because we're done. And we have some of these spider hosts here, when they die, they explode into a bunch of little mini spiders. And I just with them. The other problem with Blood Mist is, yes, you're immune, yes, you can move freely. The issue is, when you pop it, you cannot cast anything else. So you're going to want to use all your other, you're going to want to use all your other abilities before you use your Blood Mist, especially if you're doing Bone Storm. So I'm going to send my golem into taunt, I'm going to go into skeleton, Bone Storm, and Blood Mist. I think I already died, but if we didn't, this would be a massive amount of damage going out. And it lasted 10 seconds. It's quite a long time for Bone Storm to be going. On packs of mobs, if you've got your essence up and you bone spear and you're positioned right, it'll hit the first one, splinter off into 3 more. If you want to right click that, give him the bonus, 20% damage. Remember, you want to right click on your bosses every 3 seconds or so to give them vulnerability for 20% increased damage. And then let your minions do the rest. Anywho, that's the build. Super fun, super easy. We have a elite here somewhere. Objective boss. There's runes on the ground. You can see this guy is a terrifying rune caster. You'll see there's runes on the ground. If you stand in them whenever they go off, they will fear you. This is a super fun build. I really like it a lot. But during the build boss, this build is practically useless. My minions died instantly, and I had no way to get them back. So that was Blood Mist, Storm, Necromancer, Blood, what are they called? Vampires. They teleport all over the place automatically. They don't have the ability that says, or the trait on their health bar doesn't say they teleport, but all the vampires in the game will teleport around. Those humanoid ones, I believe they're only males. I have not seen a female version of those, which is whatever. We've collected all of our animus. Come to the urn, put them in there. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, you can keep having these, like, you can infinitely cast for a skeleton. So you're healing your guys for, what do I say, 10% of their health every single time you cast it. So if they're low, you can just start consuming corpses and healing them up again. These barrels will damage NPCs, so you can use those strategically to your advantage. That's pretty much this build. It's very fun. It does feel like a Necromancer. I might actually, when it goes live, I'm definitely going to be using Hemorrhage to test that out for survivability. I don't know as far as damage output wise, how much damage it does compared to this. However, I did notice that it does generate twice as much essence, which means we can use Bone Spear more often, which is our actual damage ability. This one, I guess I really should have just done that from the get-go. I really don't feel like we're spending all this time. Really good build, very fun, and it just lets you sit there and pew pew pew. Here's another event for this chest. So I'm going to taunt and kill some little guys over here. I'm going to consume the corpse to buff my huge. I'm going to shield and then red shield, blood mist, and bone storm together. Just does some crazy stuff. Loot will play a sound whenever it drops. You can change it to only play sounds for certain rarity of loot. Like I changed my loot rarity to yellow and above. I don't need to see other blue that drops. I don't really care about blues. But that's it. I've talked a lot. Way too much, more than I expected to. Got off topic a few times, but that's my Necro build.